Have you been considering a move to St. Petersburg, Florida, but you're not sure if you can afford it? Watch this video. I'm going to tell you all about the cost of living in St. Petersburg, Florida. Hi everybody, thanks for tuning in to my channel Living in Tampa, where it's my goal to show you everything you need to know about living, eating, sleeping, and playing in the greater Tampa Bay area. If you're new to my channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, ring the little bell so you'll be notified every time that I release a new video. Today's video is going to be all about the cost of living in St. Petersburg, Florida. So let's get to it. So how I'm going to cover this topic is I'm going to go by what a website, bestplaces.net, says about the cost of living in St. Petersburg, Florida, but I'm also going to fact check that and throw in some of my own real life examples of places that I frequent and my experience with things that I have purchased personally in the area. So bestplaces.net takes into consideration everything from like food and groceries to gas, transportation, housing, pretty much everything that you're going to want to know about other than taxes. It's kind of strange to me that bestplaces.net does not cover taxes because that is such an important part of your cost of living. And in Florida, we have no state income tax. So that is going to make your cost of living in St. Petersburg, Florida much, much cheaper than living in other parts of the nation. So that is what I'm going to start with today, is taxes. So I get people reaching out to me every day that are moving here from out of state. The majority of people that are moving here from California, they're moving here from New York, Chicago, all these big cities. You know what a lot of them have in common is very high state income tax. And the reason that these people want to move to Florida is because there's no state income tax. So that saves you a great deal of money right off the bat. I did some research and it looks like the average state income tax for states that do charge that is at least 8%. And in California, it can be as high as 13%. So here in Florida, we do not have that. There's no state income tax whatsoever. So that is alone going to save you, if you're moving from one of those states, it's going to save you at least $8,000 a year. That's nothing to sneeze at, and it definitely adds up over time. So keep that in mind first and foremost. There is no state income tax in Florida. So next up, let's talk about property taxes. So a lot of people that move here, I do think, find that Florida's property taxes might be a little bit on the high side. But what you do have to keep in mind is because there is no state income tax, obviously the state has to get funding from somewhere. So a lot of that does come from the property taxes. However, I think overall our property taxes are still quite low, especially when you compare it to other states like California or New York. So let's take a typical example. I'm going to show you a home in St. Petersburg. Now I'm going to choose a home that is right at that middle. The median sales price in St. Petersburg, Florida is right around $213,000. So let's take this home right here. So this home here actually recently sold for $214,400. And the current taxes on it, as you can see right here, are $2,018. I think that's pretty affordable. I mean, you're only looking at $168 a month. And if you notice right here, this house doesn't even have Homestead Exemption. That brings me to my next topic, Homestead Exemption. I find that a lot of buyers that have moved here from out of state aren't familiar with this concept, so I wanted just to touch on it just a little bit because it's a great way for you to save even more money on your taxes. Florida is one of the states that offers this amazing benefit to its residents. So the Homestead Exemption allows you to exempt a certain part of the value of your property from taxes. So most commonly, people are able to exempt $50,000 from their property taxes. There are other ways that you can exempt more if you are disabled, a disabled vet, or if you are a widower, things of that nature. There are things that come into play, but the most common is going to be $50,000. So the way that works, let's take that same St. Pete example. If there's the value, let's just say it is $214,000. Now, keep in mind the property appraiser's value is never going to be the same as market value. It's typically lower, but you would be able to take $50,000 off of that and not have to pay taxes on that $50,000. So that saves you a lot of money. Now, this only applies if the property is your primary property, and that's why you will see a lot of properties do not currently have that homestead exemption, because we have a lot of people here that own investment properties, or they own properties here in the area as a second home. However, if it is your primary residence, you definitely want to take advantage of that great benefit. The other benefit that the homestead exemption allows for is it caps the amount that your taxes can increase each year. So if you don't have a homestead exemption and the market values go way up and the tax collector, does a reassessment on properties, then that amount of tax is going to jump up. But if you have the homestead exemption, it can only go up by a maximum of 3% a year, or the inflation rate, whichever is less. So it helps you to protect the amount of tax that you're going to pay over the life of the property. So one more tax that I want to cover today is sales tax. So Florida does have a sales tax. It does range depending on which county you're living in. It varies. So St. Petersburg is in Pinellas County. Currently, the sales tax in Pinellas County is 7%. Now, I find that quite interesting because just across the bridge in Tampa, the tax is actually 8.5%. And then the county just above Hillsborough, Pasco County, which we consider that our tri-county area here for most people, is going to include Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough. It's interesting that they're not all the same throughout. You've got to keep that in mind when you're making large purchases. You're going to be much better off to buy those high dollar items in either Pasco County or Pinellas County, where the sales tax rate is only 7%. So let's move on to the next topic of housing. So I wanted to use some examples with that same median price point that I just discussed previously with the property taxes in the $213,000 range. So let's talk about housing. That is the median price point. So what that means is it's similar to what an average is. It's kind of the middle price point of all the properties. But I wanted to show you what you can get in St. Petersburg for that median price point of $213,000. As you can see on this map here, they are pretty spread out. And even in this low inventory market that we're in right now, where we literally don't have enough homes to sell and we only have about a 2-month supply, a healthy market is at 6 months supply. So that is a very low inventory that we're sitting at right now. But there are still quite a lot of homes to choose from here in a variety of areas, as you can see. And I want to point out that this would be a pretty modest home. If you're looking here, you can see the square footage. They range in size from 676 square feet, which is pretty small, with the largest one going up to 2470 square feet. But most of them, as you can see here, are going to be right around 1,000 square feet or less. So that's what you get in St. Pete for the median sales price. It's not too bad. Now, as you know, the rule of real estate, location is everything, and prices definitely vary depending on where you want to be. When you get closer to the water, or you get close to downtown, or even when you go over into the beaches, those prices are going to go up pretty quickly. St. Pete has anything from those, modest prices that we just discussed up into the multi-millions. The condos and high-rises that they have downtown that have just these amazing views of the water, those can definitely go up into the millions in no time flat. So, be aware that it does depend on where you want to be and what you're willing to spend, but there's definitely something for everyone in the St. Pete housing market. So speaking of housing, I would be remiss if I didn't include the rental market in this discussion. So right now, rental rates in St. Pete are through the roof. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to rent in this market. The housing market, the mortgage rates are so low right now, you definitely can buy a home for a lot less than you can rent one, but there are certain times when people feel that they need to rent, so I do want to discuss that as well. When you're looking at renting a place, you've got to keep in mind that you're going to be required to have that security deposit, a lot of times they want the first and last month's rent, and then of course the rent up front as well. So it's going to add up to quite a bit of money that you need when you're first moving in. Similar to what you would spend, you know, in closing costs on a loan. So that's why I'm saying sometimes I don't think it really makes a whole lot of sense to rent instead of buy. But if you're new to the area, you're not sure where you want to be, then it might be a good alternative. What I usually suggest to people though, instead of actually signing a 1-year lease where you're locked into that, is maybe do an Airbnb where you can do different areas, you know, stay for a month in near the beach at St. Pete, and then stay for a month downtown at St. Pete if you're, you know, if St. Pete is where you're considering. That way you can live in those different areas and you're not locked into anything, and you're not going to be overpaying, because when you buy, you're definitely going to get a better deal than when you rent. But here are the rental prices. This is according to bestplaces.net. The average rate, as you can see, they're showing a 3-2 right here to be $1,524. I don't think that's too accurate though, because when I pulled up this right here, as you can see from the MLS, currently the 3-bedroom, 2 baths in St. Pete, when I take the average of them, it's sitting right around $2,500. So there's a big discrepancy in that, and I think it's because the rates have gone up so suddenly, and I believe that the bestplaces.net might just have the information from last year, and this MLS printout that I showed you just a few seconds ago has the most current, you know, data that's right now what it would cost you. So as you can see, renting is quite expensive here. Definitely wouldn't recommend doing that long term. By the way, if you're even thinking about moving to the Tampa Bay area, you've got to give me a call, send me a text, or shoot me an email. However you want to communicate with me is fine. If you want to drop a comment in the area below, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'm always here for you. When it comes to moving to Tampa, I've got your back. And don't forget, hit that little subscribe button if it's your first time to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. So let's continue on with the video. The next topic we're going to cover is food. So the next topic is food. Let's talk about groceries first, and then I'm also going to go into a little bit about restaurants and eating out in the St. Pete area. So I found this interesting graphic here. It has a lot of input from a lot of different people about prices in St. Pete. I feel like this is a little bit on the high side, but what I like to do is have my groceries delivered or pick them up, because I really hate grocery shopping. It's one of my least favorite things to do. So I do that through Walmart. It's only $98 for the year. You can pick them up for free, or you can, you know, have them delivered. And of course, then you've got to tip your driver. But to me, it's well worth it to avoid the hassle of going to the store and the time that it takes going to the store. But if you look at this graphic here, it shows you the prices for various items. What I've done here for you as well, I'm going to show you what I think is more accurate, is my screenshots from my phone for my Walmart delivery. So I have my store set currently at the Walmart that's located on 34th Street in St. Pete. And here are some various items that you would most likely be buying if you were going grocery shopping. So we've got a gallon of milk. As you can see, it's $2.44. And then bread, got good old Wonder Bread here for $2.58. And an 18 pack of eggs. Only 81 cents for an 18 pack of eggs. That's crazy to me. Now bananas, of course, that goes by weight, but as you can see, they've got here, one banana is going to cost you about 16 cents. What else could I cover? We've got a chicken breast. That's $1.99 a pound right now. And Coke, let's go. A lot of people I know like to buy soda. A 12 pack of Coke is $4.98. Wow. I hardly ever buy soda. That's really expensive. Anyway, that should give you a pretty good idea of what the grocery store prices are like in our area in St. Pete. Mostly we have Publix and we have Winn-Dixie. And of course we've got Walmart, as I mentioned. Publix are more on the expensive side. They're absolutely beautiful stores. Their tagline is Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. If they don't have Publix in your area, it's definitely a nice store to go into. They're always super clean and super organized, and everyone is super friendly. Winn-Dixie is nice as well, but I would say that Publix is nicer than Winn-Dixie. And of course, Walmart, everybody knows what Walmart is like. But that kind of covers the cost of groceries. And next up, let's talk about eating out. So eating out in St. Pete, there are so many places to choose from. If you're a foodie, you are absolutely gonna love the scene that St. Pete has to offer for that. All along Central Avenue, there's all kinds of unique restaurants. One that I personally love a lot is called The Mill. They have a location in downtown St. Pete and one in South Tampa as well. I love it because it's kind of a new twist on old Southern cooking. And my dad was born in Atlanta. I'm a half Georgia girl, and I love my country cooking. And what they have there that is absolutely to die for is their fried green tomatoes. And they serve them a little bit differently than I've ever seen them. They put pimento cheese on top of them with this jam kind of stuff. Gives it just a little bit of sweetness, and the pimento cheese is kind of melting because of the hotness from the fried green tomatoes. It's so good. But they have lots of little dishes like that are Southern but just have a little twist on them. But anyway, I wanted to pop up here on the screen their menu for you so you could get an idea of what the prices were like. If you're going to have a beer or a cocktail, you can see right here, you're looking at mostly $5 or $6 for a beer, $7 or $8 for a cocktail. And if you look at some of these dishes here, the prices aren't too bad. When my husband and I go out for dinner, we typically will have a drink and we'll share an appetizer and each have our own meal. At most of the restaurants in the area, we're going to end up spending between $50 and $60 depending on, you know, what we end up picking off the menu. But I would say that's a pretty good average, and that's probably what you're going to typically spend whenever you go out for dinner. Pretty much anywhere in the St. Pete area. Now, we do have some fine dining options as well, if that's more your scene, or if you are celebrating something, you know, that's like birthday or an anniversary. There's definitely plenty of upscale places to eat. Seafood everywhere because of the proximity to the water. I understand that it's quite delicious. I'm not a seafood person myself, but definitely lots of choices when it comes to eating out, and lots of good food at reasonable prices. Next up is utilities. So that's something that people always wonder about. And keep in mind, in Florida, there's very few months of the year that you're not going to be running that air conditioning, because it does stay hot here pretty much year round. Now, once you've lived here for a while, your definition of hot is going to change. And whenever the temperature drops below 70, you're actually going to start to feel cold. So there are a couple of months a year where we use our heat, but really depends on the person. You know, some people don't turn it on right away. There's other people like myself and my daughter who, as soon as it's cold, we've got to turn that heat on. But for the majority of people, you are going to be running that air conditioning, I would say probably 10 months out of the year, and maybe the heat the other 2 months of the year. But I still think the electric rates aren't too terribly bad here. If you've got a family of 4 and a reasonable size home of, like, you know, 2,000, 2,500 square feet, you're probably looking at, you know, 150 to 180. If you've got a pool, that might push up a little bit higher. And then for water, now our water rates, I think, are a little on the high side, more because of the sewage treatment cost than the actual water cost. But when you add it all together, it adds up to a pretty high water bill. A lot of people pay pretty similar, especially if they don't have reclaimed water for their sprinkler system. You're going to pay pretty similar in electric as you are to water. Like I said, if you don't have that reclaimed water option. So I'd say for the most part, you're going to be looking at 120, maybe 150 bucks a month for water. St. Pete does include the trash service in the water bill, so that does make it seem a little higher, but you are getting, you know, 2 services for that cost. So keep that in mind. Cable, I'm not really going to go into that because that all varies, you know, depending on what package you want and things like that. But that, I think, covers the main things that people ask me about, oh, there's one more, gas. I get asked about gas a lot. I will say that we don't have a whole heck of a lot of places that have gas in the Tampa Bay area. A few homes might have a gas stove or gas water heater. Some of them will have gas heat, but we don't use it very often, and for the most part that bill is going to be very low. I would say definitely under $50 a month, maybe more like $40. But again, it depends on what appliances you have that are using that gas and your usage, of course. So I hope that covers that topic of the cost of utilities for you. If there's any specific questions, again, don't hesitate to comment below. I'm happy to respond and research anything that I don't have the answer to. So last but not least is going to be healthcare. St. Pete is home to 7 hospitals, so you definitely can get good quality healthcare without having to travel very far. As far as pricing goes, it's obviously going to vary greatly depending on your insurance. So what I've done to kind of give you a general idea is I use the St. Anthony's, which is one of the hospitals that is in St. Pete. They have a pricing calculator where you can put in, if you're not insured, what it would cost you for some typical services. So I just pulled up 3 of those to share with you. So here is the first one. It is an EKG. So if you were self-pay, no insurance, and getting an EKG, you can see here the average cost is about $263. If you were self-pay and needed to get a chest x-ray, it's going to be $341. And if you needed to have a surgery, that's where everything gets more expensive. So I just went with like an arthroscopic knee surgery. That's going to be about $12,000. So our healthcare costs, according to that bestplaces.net, is pretty much in line with the country's national average. I find myself with my insurance that I don't feel like I ever have to pay an outrageous amount. I do find the quality of care in St. Pete to be very high, and I feel like there's a very good selection of doctors to choose from, so you're not stuck with just one place, and having the 7 hospitals is super convenient. So I also wanted to cover the topic of things to do with your family when you're in St. Pete and the cost of those. So if you're here just visiting, this will give you an idea of some things to do, or if you're considering moving here, this will give you an idea of what it will cost to keep your family entertained. So the great thing about St. Pete is that there's so much to do that doesn't cost you anything. I'm going to go over a little bit of that, but I'm also going to share with you the cost of some of the various attractions that you might want to enjoy with your family as well. First and foremost, of course, the proximity to the beach. You're going to be able just to go hang out on the beach, work on your tan, go for a walk on the beach, enjoy all the water sports that there are, things of that nature. St. Pete also has a trolley that runs that you can jump on and jump off of. Take a walk around exploring different areas. You can walk around downtown just checking out all the different shops. That's a lot of fun. There's a Saturday morning market that's free. Of course, you're probably going to end up buying something, so that'll cost you something, but you can just go and check it out for free. And then, of course, we've got the new pier. The new pier is technically free. There is a small charge for parking, and most likely you're going to spend some money while you're there. But if you just go just to walk around and enjoy the view, that's definitely free. They've got little shops inside of the pier, of course, and they also have a little area that you can pay and learn all about the ecosystem. That's really great for the kids. That's very reasonable, though. For the most part, I would consider the activities at the pier to be free. But let's talk about some of the activities that are not free. So first up is Sunken Gardens. Now this is a really cool place to visit. It's a great place to go and take a bunch of pictures. It's absolutely beautiful. There's so many different flowers and plants. It's easy to get overwhelmed. It's very affordable. So for an adult, it's only $8, and for a child, it's only $4. So you can take your whole family for a very low price, and you can spend a couple hours there, and it's a lot of fun. St. Pete also has several museums. They've got the Museum of Fine Arts, they've got the Holocaust Museum, there's a few others that I'm not thinking of right now, but the cost to get in these museums is typically pretty affordable. It's going to range anywhere from $15 to $20 a person. Of course, the child rate is going to be much lower than that. And occasionally you can find, you know, different coupons for discounts and things like that. But these museums are amazing. The Dolly Museum, the building itself is incredible. Definitely something that you're going to want to check out when you're in town. And the Holocaust Museum is quite educational. It's another one that I would put on my list of things you don't want to miss. And then, of course, St. Pete has the Mahaffey Theater. There's always different things going on there. Currently, not so much because of the coronavirus, but the price of that really varies depending on what it is. They have some concerts there. They've got, you know, ballet kind of things that are held there. So the price of those really vary depending on the time of year and what it is, but it's definitely a fun night out, a super convenient location, and something that you should definitely check out if you're in town. So as you can see, hanging out and enjoying everything that St. Pete has to offer is actually quite affordable, and there's so much to do. So St. Pete is not only a great place to visit, but it's also a great place to live. Again, if you're even thinking about moving to the Tampa Bay area, if you're thinking about St. Pete, you've got to give me a call, send me a text, shoot me an email. However you want to connect with me is fine. I'm always available, and when it comes to moving here, I've got your back. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, ring the little bell so that you'll be notified every time that I release a new video. I hope that you've found this video useful, and I look forward to seeing you next time.